I'd like to call this meeting to order. Start by Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So typically, we have our board chair start every meeting and welcome people, but this is the one meeting of the year that I get to start the meeting because this is when we elect a chair and a vice chair. So at this time, I mean, I know we have a lot of people here, and we have quite a few presentations, and the weather isn't great, so we'll try to get going soon here. But the first thing we have to do is take nominations at this time for board chair. So, any nominations?
Nominate Tim Hawkins.
I'll second that. We've been practicing.
So, Tim Harkins is nominated for board chair. Other nominations?
Move nomination cease.
All those in favor of Tim Harkins being board chair? All those opposed? Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Congratulations, Tim. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. All right, we'll move on to item 4.0, nomination and election of vice chair. Is there a nomination for vice chair?
I nominate,
Go ahead.
I nominate Steve August.
Okay, there's a motion for Steve August. Is there a second to that nomination?
I'll second that.
Bill will second that. Are there any other nominations? All those in favor of Steve August as vice chair, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Great. Thank you, Steve. Welcome aboard. Okay, as Patrick said, we do have a very lengthy agenda this evening. I would just like to particularly thank all the administrators who have come out to present this evening. We are doing something new for the board. It's sort of a state of the district presentation by the administration, and I'm hoping that this will be an annual thing and that we will get a lot more support from the public to come and hear. It's the reason for doing this is to sort of inform the board as to what's going on in the district, to inform the public what's going on in the district, and to maybe help us in our decision-making process as we move into the budget cycle. So again, I'll be thanking you again, but I want to do it multiple times, especially with the weather out there. Another thing that I need to mention, again, we kind of passed over this quickly last week, or excuse me, last month. It seems like last week. I wanted to especially thank Chet Garrison, who could not be here tonight for his time on the board, and also Julie Rice, who I think is here this evening. Again, a lot of years and dedication to the board. They made great contributions. We just have something here for you, and here, I'll bring it to you. So thank you so much, Julie, for everything. And Julie, just to let you know, you won't be forgotten because we've decided that we are going to, somewhere in the district, have a plaque that lists all the former board members from the RSU. So you and Chet and Francie and Charlie, thank you, and Betsy will be on that. So that will be in the district someplace. The only, I guess I'm going to move on because we have so much to cover this evening. So, thank you. I also want to welcome our two newest board members, Steve August, who is our new vice chair, and Kyle Jacobin. So thank you guys very much for joining the ranks. All right, so we will move on to approve and amend minutes of December 17th. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at these. Is there a motion to accept these as written, or are there any changes?
So move.
Okay, moved by Alan, seconded by Bill. Any further discussion? Okay, I did notice in the 4th paragraph, third line down, after some communities thought, we may just want to include either they or we should stay with the current 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. It's the only change that I saw. Any other changes, any other discussion? All right. All those in favor of the motion to accept with the changes, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, none opposed. That passes. We will move on to approving the minutes from January 14th. Actually, we have a second set of minutes from the 17th. Let's start with that one. Okay, so is there a motion to approve the minutes from the 17th?
So moved.
Moved by David,
No second.
second by Robin. Just take a look. Were there any changes? I would just ask Vita, under recognition and comments from the chair, if we could just include Newtown before Connecticut. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve with the change, raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay. We will move on to now the minutes from January 14th. Is there a motion to approve as written?
So moved.
Moved by Robin,
Second.
seconded by Alan. Okay, any further discussion on these? These are short ones. All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Those pass. All right, we will move on to item 7.0, adjustments to the agenda. Patrick, did you have any adjustments? Okay, I had one. It was brought to our attention at the last meeting that Robin and David had an interest in speaking on universal pre-K. I'd like to give both of them a chance to speak to that under new business. Let's call that 14.2. Okay, are there any other adjustments to the agenda?
Just want to, Tim, on the list of committee assignments to be addressed and be filled, I had emailed Mr. Segura
Yep.
meeting whether it's appropriate to have that list.
Yep, we can talk about that then, and that list is the existing assignments, so we'll be reviewing that and changing that during this time. Okay, we will move on to 8.0 public session. We have two public sessions. I asked during this public session that if you would like to speak during this first public session, please keep your comments to 2 minutes, and please speak to something on the agenda. If there's an item that you'd like to speak to that's not on the agenda, if you could save your comments for our second public session. And before I ask for anyone to come up, I just want to clarify something that came to my attention over the weekend. And this is unusual for me to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I had received a couple of emails and then finally a phone call which sort of clarified things for me. There have been some concerns in the community about a policy that we're discussing tonight, animals in schools. And I want to clarify something for the public in case somebody wanted to speak to that policy. By no means was that policy intended to ban pets from the schools. There was one line in that policy that may have alluded to that. It was in there falsely, and I think if you look at the rest of the policy, it mainly deals with practical issues about how to handle pets in the schools. What do we do if a child is bitten by a pet in the school? How do we care for our pets in the school? What is the policy around keeping pets in the school? So by no means was this policy eliminating pets from school. So that we'll talk about this policy when we get to it, but I just want to make that clear in case there's someone here who wanted to speak to the animals in school policy. So anyway, on to the public session. Is there anyone who would like to speak?
Hi, good evening. My name is Mike Tater, and I don't know, I actually have a very brief comment on the budget, and it's not on your agenda this evening, but if you would give me, I will do it in 120 seconds.
There you go. Go for
Is that
it.
okay?
Yeah.
So I have a daughter who's in the West Bath School. She's in Mrs. Rogers' third grade class. And you folks, first I should say thank you all for doing what you're doing. These are difficult times to be in school administration. You all have a lot on your plate, so start by thanking you. The issue I want to invite you to sort of a seed I want to plant as you go into the budget is this question of school choice busing. And I'll just leave you with an image and invite you to consider something. And the request that I have is whether you might reconsider putting that back into the budget. And the image is this. If you go to the West Bath School on a Wednesday or a Friday, which I don't know what you've done that, but there are many, many parents picking up their students, more than you would think if you merely took away school choice busing. And in talking with Mrs. Thompson there, basically she feels as though what's happened is a lot of parents who used to rely on busing from the West Bath School to drop their kids off at their workplace or to drop their kids off where they have split families in another town are now having to come and pick up their kids. And so you have a situation where there are a lot more cars, and here's what's happening. First of all, the parking lot over there is not as safe as it once was. Second of all, the teachers are having spent a lot of time managing arrivals and drop-offs. And so there's a significant amount of time out of the classroom just managing people coming and going. And then third of all, you have the question of just fairness for the families who aren't able to avail themselves. It turns out, when you think about it, that these schools are all, even though they're in different towns, they're all in one community, which is something I'm sure you're all aware of. So that's probably my 120 minutes. 120 seconds. And I would just invite you, and by the way, I represent the school advisory group, I should have said that, in West Bath, and we'd be happy to help you think about how to problem solve the issue. Last year in the budget, the school choice busing was combined with preschool busing, and the number seemed significant at the time, but it's a relatively small number, I think. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate what you're doing.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay. We will move on to item 9.0, student presentation. 9.1, this evening we have a presentation by some Dyke Newell grade 1 students. Patrick?
Yeah, we're fortunate to have Wanda Brown, grade 1 teacher at Dyke Newell, and I think 5 students with you?
Just 4.
4, okay, 4 students with you tonight, so welcome. All yours.
Yep, floor is yours.
Great. have a teacher voice, but I'll use the microphone. I am Wanda Graham. I teach at Diagonal School, and these are 4 of my students. And when I say your name, would you just stand up so people will know who you are? We have Fritz Burleson, and Tristan Kidwell, and then we have Gwendolyn Panensky, and Nadia Panensky. And they're here tonight to share with you what they're doing with iPads in the classroom. And I've been hearing from some adults out and about in a variety of places that people don't think that iPads have a place for young children. And we'd like to show you that they most certainly do have a place with young children and how the kids are using this. Last year, Dean gave my class 5 iPads to use from March until June as an experiment. And the deal that he struck with me was that we could keep them that long, but that I had a blog about what was going on. So we have a blog up and kept track of what was going on. And during that time, I also went to a workshop in Burlington, Massachusetts, and learned a little bit more about the iPads as well, and learned so much that I came home and immediately bought one myself, and that's the iPad that you see here. I knew I was going to lose the 5 that Dean loaned me. Couldn't imagine starting the school year without one. So it is mine, but we share it, and it's amazing what we can get done in the classroom with just one iPad, and the students are going to help me show you that.
Fritz, can you come help me for a minute? I'm going to turn the camera on, okay? And you just put your book right under here and see if you can see.
I'm going to try to narrate for you as we go along so that you will see what's happening here. This is a book that Fritz has written. It's in its draft stages. He's in the middle. We've actually typed it up, and he's in the middle of illustrating the final copy now. His story is called Fred. One of the ways we use the iPad in the classroom is we use it as a document camera. In the past, we have purchased document cameras, we've purchased computers, we've purchased cameras, we've purchased video cameras. The beauty about the iPad is that it's all of those things in one. So really, you get a lot more bang for your buck. And we certainly have been using it that way. Fritz, can you just open up the book so that you can show that when we're writing a story, we come all together and we share the student's story. Fritz would be reading this aloud to his classmates. We'd be talking about the revisions that he's done. We talk about the editing that he's done. He becomes a model for the rest of the students when we share his work. So the iPad used as a document camera is a great way for us to share our work together. Makes sense.
Tristan, would you come do the 10s and 1s for us? Just can you get them on the piece right here and just put them up?
Another way that we use the document camera is to do a lot of math work. And so it's not uncommon for us to be working at math stations and then come together and share the work that we're doing. So in this case, Tristan, can you fix those up so we get them in the right place? Tristan might be working with tens and hundreds, tens, and ones, and then as a class, we might have to identify what number he's trying to build here. This is a pretty common way that we open our day in the morning, doing some type of math work all together.
I'm going to lower this. The apparatus that you see is called the Betty. The Betty is something that we got a company to give us for free. It holds the iPad and makes it very stable. It can tilt and be used as a tripod. It can go up and down. It really houses it, and it really helps the kids not have any accidents for the most part. Okay, Gwen, you want to come up? So they're going to share with you a few of the things that we do as a class, and you can choose any one of those you want. Gwen, doesn't matter, right? Just choose. Gwen is in a program that's a sight word program. It's also a spelling program.
One of the things about 21st century learning is we know we need to start moving in the direction where the kids have a lot of interest. And we need to get away from a lot of paper and pencil work and workbook work, and we need to do things that are exciting to them and make them motivated and want to learn. Every child has to learn how to spell, but it can be a lot more fun than just doing something in a workbook. So in this case, when this particular program doesn't work well with the Apple TV, which we're using, so we're a little bit limited in what we can show you because of the way we have it set up. But she would be learning the word "the." Try clicking on the star and see what we're reading for you.
The.
So she can try to read the word herself. If she's unable to, she can click on it to have it read to her. Children get immediate feedback. When you're a teacher with 18 children, you can't give everybody immediate feedback. But it's great when you have a machine that can do that for you. So Gwen's next job is to try to write this word as neatly as they wrote it. And she's going to try to do that down below. While she's writing it, she's going to spell it out loud for us. Now, the best part about this, and the part they love the most we can't show you, is notice in the upper right-hand corner there's a little microphone. Typically, they hold that down, they say the word, they spell the word, and they let go of it, and their own voice projects. But this is where we're having a little snafu, so we can't share that with you, unfortunately.
Nadia? Nice job. Okay. Yeah, we decided on this one, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Nadia's going to share with you a new spelling app that I just downloaded last week for them. I'm going to click on the practice card, right, Nadia? It's a little busy. We like that.
Dash.
In this case, Nadia's told the word. She's going to try to get the letters up in the correct place.
D. A. S. H. D. A. S. H. Dash.
And again, it's immediate feedback for them. So we're trying to wait for a teacher to say, yes, you did it right, or we need to work on that again. There's immediate feedback, which is really, really important in this day and age. So, thank you.
Tristan? We're going to do the states that we did this morning, okay? There we go.
Our class happens to be pen pals with 49 other states. We have a postcard program going, trying to learn a little bit of geography and writing at the same time. So as the postcards come in, we've been learning a little bit about the state, where it is in the United States, and a little bit about it. And this is one thing that we've been able to practice along the way. And Tristan's just going to quickly try to put a few states in their place.
Texas. Alaska. Hawaii. Maine.
We have a student that's not here, so we can skip over her part.
Welcome to Base 10, Agent Prime. Dr. Odd is up to his old trick. Dr. Odd is building a global network of computers to eliminate... Select an operation now. Select your mission. Well done, Agent Prime.
And you can see why that would have its appeal, especially the males, young men. Yes, Tristan, so you next. This next program is one of the earliest ones that we downloaded, and it is one of the favorites. Let's try and make recommendations at April 13, and as he does that, the fish is fed and becomes larger and larger. If he stops feeding the fish, it will get smaller and die. Fritz? Where did math doodles go? Yeah, let's do this one, and that way we can show. You can do this instead of Maya. You know how to hide them. Okay, so Fritz is going to, this is a number grid. We work with number grids a lot in our math program. He's going to hide all the numbers, and then he's going to take a circle and he's going to drag it onto the grid. And what our class does is that then we try to discover what number that is. And we have a variety of ways of doing that. Fritz, can you tell us one way that you might be able to figure out what number that is? Big levels.
We could go from the tens place and go down, and then count to the one with the ones.
Can you show us how to do that? Just put your finger on it and count down.
10, 20, 30,
And then what?
31, 32, 33, 34.
Great job. And if you move that away, yeah, there you go. Okay. So the number grid game is a real, quite often when they come in first thing in the morning, that is a game that a lot of them play. Gwen, will you come to the measurement? Okay, so we're going to do the measuring at the start. In this ways of practice measuring, just a couple ways that she can do it once and then ruler over. By the noise and also by the story. We don't usually have it that noisy in the classroom. Let's see, time, Nadia? This is the one that we've used the most, right? This is the one, okay. In this case, Nadia has a clock app up, she's going to click play.
5:30.
The nice part about most of these apps is that you can set them up to differentiate for instruction. So if I had students that would only do time to the hour, that's what we would be working on. Students that can do time to the 5 minutes, we'd be working on that as well. And there's always some support, which was 5:30. Half past 5.
Yes. 11:30. That's it. 12:30.
I'm going to stop there because I know you really need a lot of time, but just to say that I also teach reading using the iPad. We download a lot of books, We put them on the screen. We're able to mark all over the words. Kids are able to record themselves reading. And I guess I got it done that way because I promised the rest of the class that you could hear them read.
They wanted to be here as well. And what you're going to hear here is actually a lesson.
Okay, boys and girls, so this story is called The Little Red Hen. And we're going to read this story today after we do a real quality picture walk. And I think instead of just doing a picture walk today, we'll do a little bit of a word walk too. I like that very much when somebody said a word walk. Was that you, Hunter? Okay. So the first thing I need is to have a volunteer come up and circle where the title of this story is. Where's the title? And what part of the book is the title usually on? Jeremy, would you come up and circle with your finger the title of this book?
So Jeremy,
Take your finger and go right around the title. Oh, nice job. Look at Jeremy go. Excellent job. Okay, so Jeremy has just circled where it says The Little Red Hen. How many words do you see there? Maya? 4. 4 words, okay? And which word has the most beats? Nadia? I can't hear you, honey. Little. How many beats?
Little.
2 beats. And how many beats do all the rest of the words have? 1. Okay. So we're going to move on to the next page. Here we go.
Would it show shadow?
Go ahead. 1, 2, 3.
Now they've been. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, folks, for coming in. Thanks for the presentation. Were there any questions for the board? For Wanda? No. Okay, well, thank you again. Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we'll move on to item 10.0, staff reports, and we will begin with 10.1, the district progress report. So I'll turn that over to Patrick.
Yeah, take us a minute to get set up here, but we're going to show it up here again. And really what this is, Tim alluded to it at the beginning, but really it's just a fairly brief snapshot of some highlights in the district, not all of them, and also areas that need attention or maybe need improvement at all levels. But what we're trying to do tonight was, for the first part, we'll start with the elementary level, K to 5, then we'll move to the middle level, and then the secondary level, which will include Morse, but also BRCTC, and then we'll have a little bit of athletics, and then I'll say a few comments at the end. So we're trying to keep this to 30 to 40 minutes at the most, but stop us if you have questions, or we can certainly take questions at the end. So I think it will provide you with a better understanding of the district, as well as, like Tim alluded to, is things that may be needed this budget season to be considered. So we'll get this going as soon as we can.
Yeah, thanks. I think it'll be just a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we can pull our chairs. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you can just leave the chairs in the front row. So we're going to start with elementary, and
Sometimes we're going to balance, we'll have different speakers, but to start with, we're going to have Carrie Babcock, start with the elementary level.
So we got together as all of the elementary schools to talk about crowds, and found there are lots of things that are unique to each of our individual schools, but for this presentation, we really looked at things that are more district-wide across all of the schools. So here's some highlights that we found. First, strong instructional practices. There's really a focus on student-centered instruction. Teachers are working really hard to differentiate for individual students. They're working hard on creating a lot of what Wanda just showed us, working hard on creating learning opportunities that come from students' interests, that look toward 21st century skills. In all the elementary schools, we've been focusing on using our data to inform our instruction. We use data, the developmental reading assessment that we do with the students in the elementary school, as well as the NWEA, NWEA computer-based assessments. Teachers use them to goal set with students. They're also using them to determine learning targets. Learning targets are really the teacher's the goal for that lesson. But as a district, we've been working really hard on communicating what our learning targets are to the students, stating them in language that is student-friendly, and having students really reflect on their learning and monitor their own progress and reflect on their progress and set goals based on that. In all the schools, we've focused on research-based literacy practices. The Daily 5 Literacy Cafe are an example of that. In some of the schools, we've been focusing on professional development series by Reggie Rabbit, looking at the connections between reading and writing. Lucy Coppin's writing is a writing program at the elementary level, the younger grades, and looking at units of studying genres in writing. And we've also had some teachers in the district piloting a new spelling program, Spelling Connections, which we hope to look at adopting district-wide in the future. This past summer, some of our staff took advantage of an opportunity to work on a math workshop model. We had Lisa come to do a workshop about delivering our everyday math curriculum or a workshop model workstations that really helps again to differentiate different needs. We looked at achievement, and for this purposes of this presentation, we looked at the results for grade 3, as that was part of the board's goal, was including grade 3. Based on 2011 and 2012 data, in reading, 67.6% of our students in third grade showed English growth, and about 72% met proficiency and reading standards, according to the NWEA testing. In math, you can see 66% show years growth and 67% met proficiency and reading. So these are our students that are currently fourth graders. So we'll be looking at our data from this year from the NWEA as we just took our winter tests. So we'll be looking at that data. Another thing across the district is professional development. All of our late start Wednesdays, and we all felt in each building that we're utilizing that time to its maximum potential. Some of the things, there's access to new technology at Woolwich. They had training about how to use some of the new technology that they have there. West Bath is in its third year of expeditionary learning and partnering with them. District-wide, for our grade level release days as well as our district professional development, we've had a consistent focus, which began last year and is continuing this year on writing. And we've really been working this year connecting that writing to the new Common Core state standards that Maine has adopted. And the teachers in grade levels on our district late start on Wednesdays, as well as grade levels have been working on that route, which has been a nice, sometimes we've had a tendency to kind of jump around and there's so much to get done that we really remain focused on that. There's also a team in our district, Maine Autism Leadership Team, who are working on a 3-year process and being trained to become our experts on students, including students with autism in challenges that they face and ways that we can best support them. So that will be over a 3-year process. We also began last year and continue this year with looking at the effects of poverty on students in the classroom and how that manifests itself and in their learning as well as their behavior. And we've had some great professional development around that that's really kind of opened our eyes a little bit, help us to meet needs in a different way. We also have an RSU1 mentoring program for our new staff, and that's for new teachers as well as staff that is new to us that support them. They're connected with experienced teachers. They go out and do observations, they observe each other, and that's been another great professional development opportunity. All the elementary schools are very appreciative of our community partnerships in each towns. All schools have very supportive PTOs and PTAs, and they've been able to supplement a lot of things that we haven't had funding for, a lot of enrichment opportunities, field trips, opportunities for students to go and do field work. We really, really appreciate the support of PTOs and PTAs. Each school has dozens of volunteers that are there on a consistent basis. We have our school advisory groups, which also help to support the needs of each individual school as well as connecting to the RSU. We have partnerships with local businesses and organizations in each community and connections with main colleges and universities. We've had student teachers. We have Roland students that come to do observations in our schools, and so we made some connection there. Again, all of the elementary schools believe in the importance of early childhood, and research certainly supports that. We have choices for pre-K, which currently are at some community sites as well as Woolwich and Nightingale. They're servicing 96 pre-K students this year, which is an increase over last year. The goal is to hopefully continue that so that we have universal pre-K. In West Bath and Pittsburgh, we have programs that help our kindergarten students transition from preschool to kindergarten. They start usually in March, and we have nights throughout the spring where the kids come and they participate in activities with their teachers. They get a chance to get to know the building. They have an opportunity to get to know one another. The parents also have an opportunity to get to know one another, which helps that transition into kindergarten. And then we also have Salem Literacy at Book Center, which is a collaboration between adult ed and elementary schools and adults. Parents go, and it supports the parents as well as children from the beginning. Adults work with their GEDs, building skills so they can get to college. They also participate in activities that help them build their family literacy learning from infancy to age 8. At all the different schools, we provide some after-school activities. Most of these are supervised by volunteers, either staff that volunteer their time or community members or parents. Some of the examples are up there, you can see. There's also at Dykenville a second grade computer after-school program that's focused on math. Mary McCauley, the PE teacher at Pittsburgh, has just started an archery program for our 5th graders. So these are just some of the examples of after-school activities. So with all of those positive things, there are also some challenges, and we met with the board in November to kind of review these in more detail, which is some of the challenges are the support for behavioral needs. We're also looking at interventions to help boost that achievement in all academic areas. That would be people resources as well as instructional resources. With the exception of Woolwich, technology also poses a challenge. We've got to see one is how valuable and how important technology is and will be, and we have limited resources in that area. Time for teacher collaboration. We have late start Wednesdays and we have staff meetings, but there's not, we always have more time to get together. Some of the best professional development is teachers having time to collaborate on individual students as well as on instructional goals. And facilities, professional development, again, social resources for our students to help support them with some of the challenges that they have, as well as the physical condition of our buildings.
I'm Tom Stoll, principal of Woolwich.
And Paxolo, principal of Athensville. And we share grandchildren. Because of the fine work done in the elementary schools by the music department, Bath Middle School and Woolwich have outstanding music programs.
Absolutely, and we have about a third of our middle school population participating in either chorus or band, really going well for us.
Our band and chorus students have a wonderful opportunity of participating in with authentic audiences. It's just a list of the number of opportunities they have, from holiday concerts to elementary performances, St. Patrick's Day, Memorial Day parades, District 3 auditions, sharing their talents at local nursing homes.
And this year, for the first time, Woolwich is producing the Wizard of Oz in middle school, which is basically manned by chorus and band members. People who want to participate with that.
Just as important as the academics that occur inside the classroom is the extracurricular activities and wellness activities that students have the opportunities to participate in. Bath Middle School has, for a number of years, developed wellness programs and activities for students, from snowshoeing to cross-country skiing to fitness classes to going to the fitness room, etc. This year, our wellness committee put together the Bath to Bath Regatta, which is a way of documenting the wellness activities that students participated in. For every activity they participated in, they received 100 miles to travel across the Atlantic Ocean from Bath, Maine to Bath, England, and they would earn prizes on that trip over and on their return trip as well.
And we continue our fan night and the community night at Woolwich, where we invite the students from grades K to 8 actually to come into the school, and there's basketball and volleyball and there's cooking and a lot of variety of activities at the school. Turn the TV off, come on into the school and participate. We also do jump rope for the hat first in the morning for many volunteering students the first 10 minutes of the day. And once a year we do the walk to school program, where we are dropped off at the town office of Woolwich and walk across into the school and we pledge in the parking lot, and just have a great opportunity to start the day out exercise. We both have suicide prevention programs in our school when the need is out there, so we are addressing that need.
Extracurricular participation in the fall, 47% of Bath Middle School students participated in some sort of sport, and 44% at Woolwich Central School participated in a fall sport.
In the wintertime, numbers down a little bit, but still participating. At Woolwich, we only have one basketball team for the boys and one for the girls, so the numbers are not the same as soccer in the fall, but still we have a high percentage of kids who want to participate. We'll say at Woolwich, we used to have an A team, a B team, and a co-ed team. Now we just have one team, one boy. At Woolwich right now, technology is terrific at Woolwich. We have iPads for our kids' high population, 25 per grade level. And we also have 25 new laptops for the library and 25 units for the 6th grade, which means that there's one set of laptops for the 6th grade, and the classes can participate 25. And that,
both Woolwich and Bath Middle School obviously participate in the MLTI statewide program. All students have a one-on-one MLTI network for the morning 7th grade and 8th grade.
I will say with the technology, you see the image on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, those interactive projectors. In our new school, we have one in every classroom in most conferences.
For achievement, like the elementary schools, we're constantly looking at NUIA data, ECAP data, and other data that students give us through their academics. For 7th grade math, with students with learning disabilities, 70% of that matter exceeded the NWEA grade level norm from fall to winter just recently.
You know, so that's middle school, the boys fall, NWEA to grade 7, we're above the grade level norm. And if you take a look at the breakdown for where we have with the math, it's interesting that math middle school statistics is trained, boards is not. But it does vary back and forth, so take a look at where those needs are.
Council? Madam Middle School has been an expeditionary learning school for a number of years, and part of that expeditionary learning is to spend time looking at our practice and perfecting that practice. So we have what we call APG days, or meetings after school once a month for 90 minutes, in which staff share what teaching is going on in the classroom, bringing student work, and we analyze it and look to improve what we do with students.
In addition, we do spend on these literacy at critical reading and writing skills, active pedagogy groups in our school as well, along with critical friends, and our focus this year is on the reading and writing.
Both Woodbridge and Bath Middle Schools spend a lot of time making connections with the community through food drives, food banks, expeditions, classroom activities, individual community service, etc.
Kind of unique, last year, both Woodbridge and VMS planted our own fruit orchards. In the back of Woodbridge, we have 20 new apple trees that were planted last spring, and the same thing with Bath. We have a veterinarian that comes in to speak to our groups of students, and the Buckseed charity we do that every year to raise money prior to Christmas, help needy families.
Just share with you, one of the food bank activities that one of our expeditions did was to sponsor cans and raise money and donate over $450 to a local food bank.
And this year we had a great food bank as well. We provided over 600 pounds of food in the Bath food bank where we collected it. And we're very appreciative of everybody's efforts from Bath and Woodbridge.
Despite the fine, outstanding job that our special education teachers are doing, we are overstretched and need to start stretching even more to provide life skills and alternative education programming for our students. It's an area that we definitely need to improve in.
Yeah, and we also need a health program to help educate in place, foreign language has been leading in the past. Student services, I speak for Woodbridge, so we have a guidance counselor that's there for 3 days a week. We have 365 kids that really need that service. And we need adult support for interventions with IPI, response intervention. We need more hands in there to help work with kids who are struggling.
Hello. Hi, I'm Peter Call, Principal of Morris High School. Next to me is Scott Walker, Athletic Director, who will jump in when it comes to the athletics slide. Okay, for good news, our EP scores, and I'll explain this chart to you relatively briefly. The dark blue is Morris High School scores for the past 5 years. The green is the state of Maine, and the tan is global scores for AP. The sidebar there is the percent total of AP students who are scoring a 3 or above in AP scores. The AP test is scored on a scale of 1 to 5. In order to receive college credit for any of those AP tests, you have to receive a 3 or better. And so if we look at 2012, 82% of the Morris High School students who did take the exam scored a 3 or better. That is significantly higher than the Maine state average and the global average. And we have been pretty much higher than those two all along for 5 years. 2010, I think what happened there is that we had our most number of students take the AP test. And when so many took it, not everybody was able to achieve those scores. And that's why we just sort of broke even. This year in October is when our students take the PSATs, and these are the scores for the sophomores. And in the 6 years I've been principal at Morris High School, this is the first time that our students actually scored higher in all areas of the state, and in some areas even higher than the nation, which is really good news. 43.4 mean in reading, higher than the state, as you can see. In mathematics, it was 42.3 was the mean, higher than the state, actually fairly significantly higher. Slightly higher in writing. So this was really good news for us, because that means that these sophomores, when they go into junior year, hopefully, with continued support and instruction from us, will perform quite well on the SATs. So we're very pleased to see this. Part of the reason why I think that the sophomores and the PSATs are getting better at Morris is that we're really making an effort to make sure that that's a much more structured exam and that it's not as distracting as it used to be. And next year we need more plans to make sure that that testing environment is as optimal as possible for students to be successful. Some of the problems we have at Morris High School. One is our food pantry and clothing donation center. This might have been mentioned in some of the good news reports that I put in, but I want the public to know about what's going on. Working in conjunction with the Bath Food Bank, our library now has its own food pantry that's mostly funded by donations from teachers. That food pantry is housed in the library, and any student who knows about it can just simply go down there and ask the code word, "Can I have the key?" That student is led into the food pantry. They have bags there. They load up paper bags and they walk out with dinner for their family that night. It's really something that's quite marvelous to see. This year we also added the clothing donation center. So now there are racks of coats and sweaters and sweatshirts also in that food pantry area. And so students that need clothing and too embarrassed to ask or are afraid to ask, they just simply go in there and they grab whatever coats they want. We ran out of coats this year, and I put out another all call to the staff to get more coats, and more coats came in, and as quick as they came in, they went out. So that's something to really be proud of for the Morris High School staff. Our Career Center, fully staffed and gaining momentum. Our Career Center, again, is probably one of our most successful volunteer coordinations at the high school. They have 75 volunteers. It started by Mary Chapin and Linda White. Thank you. And those two ladies together managed to get at least 75 volunteers to work with students in numerous ways. They can go down there for mentoring, they can go down there for resume help, they can go down there for the FAFSA forms, or they can go down there to help with the Common App or search colleges, or even find job opportunities in the community. Really proud of their efforts, and it is gaining momentum. Students are now beginning to discover the Career Center. We refer them to the Career Center. They can go down there and get free snacks. They can go down there and hang out in between their study halls or open periods, and that's happening more and more. Some of the clubs I want to recognize. One is the debate club right now with Kyle Hytel sitting right there this weekend, who again held his championship in the Lincoln Douglas debates and won the state championship in that. So congratulations to Kyle. Kyle didn't work alone, but he has, it is this little train that could in the debate team, because there's not many in this club. There's David Rice, Baltimore Ron Ewan, Alex Sinclair, Emma Berkowitz, and Christine Skorowski. This little team that could has beaten much larger and more established teams around the state. We came in second in the JV Lincoln Douglas event, and because of these high honors, we came in third overall in the state, which is really unbelievable considering that Coach Bartlett and Coach Hytel do this voluntarily. They do not receive a stipend. The only thing that I pay for is the fees to enter these contests, and this team continues to impress. Our Interact Club also made the news this weekend, if you saw Friday's paper. Interact is a club that's associated with Rotary. It's run by Leslie Trundy, who used to be a Rotarian. And this year's focus for the Interact Club is to work with CASA, Communities Against Substance Abuse. And there are now Rotary Interact members who attend the CASA meetings, which I think are once a month. And their goal this year is they're now working on a campaign for texting and driving. And there's going to be a large presentation in May that's going to be completely run by the Interact Club to the Morris community about the dangers of texting and driving. There's already banners, and we have wristbands, and we have t-shirts, and we have a large promotional campaign coming up for that. Our other little club that could is Amnesty International, which is run by David Eganson, and they continue to look at tragedies and Holocausts around the world. And many times they bring to attention in the Morris community some of these things that do happen. And it's a very active club, and again, David, once again, does this without any stipend, and he is a true believer in the MSC International. Possibility U in the Common App. I think Superintendent Manuel mentioned Possibility U in one of the meetings, but it's a program that we are test driving this year, and it was developed by a Freeport woman. And basically what you do is you can enter your interest, you can enter your grade, you can enter your finances, and this program spits out colleges that are possible for you. And not only just possible for you, but actually will probably accept you if you choose to go to those universities. And it's become quite a very popular program, and Ms. Trundy, again, is really spearheading that to make sure that students take advantage of this. This is a program we hope to be able to keep that for us. Right now it's free because it's being paid by Melmac, but next year it will not. So we're hoping to be able to do that. The Common App, for those who don't have any college-ready students, is the application that universities now use for acceptance into your college. And more universities are now using the college app, the Common App. And every year it's a struggle to get kids to fill it out, but this year we've reached our highest percentage of seniors filling it out. Almost 85% of our seniors have filled out the Common App. Scholarships in Melmac. Some people don't realize on the board that how many scholarships that our students are eligible for at Morris High School. Annually, in May, we divvy out about $250,000 worth of scholarships to our students. And that, for a small school of 600 in the state of Maine, is pretty remarkable. We also get a lot of help from the Davenport Society and grants from them. Melmac is a grant that we have been working with at the high school for many, many years. It's money used to help encourage students to pursue secondary education. This is unfortunately the last year for Melmac. That money over the years has been used to fund field trips to take kids all across the state to visit colleges. One of our most effective field trips in Melmac money is to take freshmen to go see SMCC and other local community colleges. Those two trips alone can really encourage students who have never even considered post-secondary education to attend those colleges. Here's Mr. Walker.
Good evening. Just a few items to speak overall about athletics, and then we'll highlight the two that are on the slide. Our numbers have increased markedly over the past 2 years. We're looking at approximately, in the fall, we're looking at approximately 1/3 of our students participating in interscholastic athletics. And then if we were to add the intramural portion of that, we would be nearly 50% participation, which at the high school level is in our socioeconomic area, it's a pretty substantial amount. In the wintertime, we have a little bit of a drop off from that. As we have fewer programs, but in the spring, we typically are right up there again at the nearly 50%, which is, again, 625 students or so, quite impressive. Mr. Manuel asked me to highlight a couple of our programs, just to touch base really briefly. Our girls soccer program, for the last 4 years since I've been here, we have competed in the postseason yearly. In the last 2 seasons, we competed in the Western Maine Regional Championship. We're one of the last 4 schools to compete in Class B in the state of Maine for the last 2 years. Tremendous accomplishment. This past season, 2011, fall of 2011, our first trip to the Western Maine final. After that experience, we graduated with one of the most talented squads in the state. We came back this year, full of doubt, lots of youth, lots of inexperience, and made it back to that same level of competition, and also competed in the KVAC Championship game. It's our athletic conference. One of the attributes to that is the investment of time and effort in soccer at all levels, including youth soccer, and the continuity and stability of our coaching staff lends itself to great success. Another item to discuss, and maybe at the upper end of the spectrum, is our boys basketball program. This year at Morris, we hired put in place 4 new varsity coaches, one of which was in the boys basketball varsity position. Having a fantastic bounce-back season, 3 years with a combined win total over 3 years of 6 wins. We've had a good deal of coverage to make, and this group has. They've done exceptionally well. They have fully maxed out their participation level. We have 3 levels of participation: freshman, junior varsity, and varsity. The new coaching staff has brought a tremendous level of enthusiasm to the program. And at the time I submitted this, we were in 5th place in appeal points in Western Maine Class B. We've fallen a little bit as those change every day. But at this point, with the season end today, we would be in the tournament in Portland for the first time in 4 years ago. I think there's some very positive things to be found in our athletic programs, and these are just two examples.
As everybody has said, with all the positives, there are some challenges in high school. Our ninth grade failure rates are actually going up, which is concerning. You can see the numbers there on the screen. Right now, for the 12-13 year, it's 29%. We're currently exploring why this is happening. There could be various reasons. Nothing that we can really put our fingers on, but it's something that we're concerned about and we're continuing to explore. Graduation rate at Morse, for those who don't know the history, back in around 2006, the graduation rate for Morse used to be about 68%, so it was fairly low. Over the years, we've managed to get it up to a high of 80.58% in 2010, but that's slowly slipping. We ended 2012 with a 77.78% graduation rate. I think this is probably a result for the reason why so many of us have stressed that we need an alternative school. We are tending to lose our most high-risk kids. It doesn't take many kids to result in this type of graduation rate. In 2012, we lost 47 students to dropout, and so that's where that 77.78% comes from. No need to tell you that Morse is aging. This past week with the cold weather, the building was freezing. It's built in 1929. The ES report pointed out 2 years ago that there are 9 critical areas for Morse's building. We need to address those. Lack of inclusion in co-teaching. This was a goal for the special ed department in an effort to sort of curtail some of the pull-out classes that we had to have, where we were pulling kids, special ed kids out of regular ed classes into these basic classes, and they were not really receiving the skills they needed to be successful on the state assessments. So we tried to do a co-teaching model. We actually are still co-teaching somewhat. It got a little bit, we backslid a bit because of lack of staffing and time to be able to have common planning. But it's a model that we believe is very effective and quite necessary. So kids get as much of the setting of a real classroom as they could so they can be successful in state exams. And the final one is the alternative education, which many have spoken of before. I think it's critical that we really begin to look at a model. We're one of the few schools in the area that does not have a formal alternative education for helping our students, and it's that lack of a model that's really impacting so many areas of course, from attendance to our dropout rate to our test scores, and so it's just an area that I cannot stress enough. We'll turn it over to Mr. Austin from the RCTC.
Thanks, Peter. Nice job. This is a new experience for us. I want to show that up. I can take a look at that box there. That is my house, or at least part of it, being lifted into place on a foundation on Middle Street on the south end. What you see there is the crane. That crane is capable of lifting 80 tons, well over 100 feet. It lifted about 60 feet in the air over the adjacent houses and the wires, which you see there. That's the best example. It's the most visible example of what we do at the RCTC. We make things, we do things. Our hallmark is that we prepare students to be ready to go to work. Out of our 10 technical programs, 8 of those programs are graduate students who are fully employable, able to make a living wage. The other 2 programs are much more college preparatory in nature, the engineering drafting program and the commercial art program. They're tough to do those programs to make a living, but those students have other opportunities. It would be interesting for you to come into a classroom at the RCTC and see an initial unit being presented or an initial skill being taught. It's a very traditional model in the beginning. Teacher standing in front, doing some delivery, using some technology, introducing a topic or a skill set. the principles that are involved in what it is the students are going to learn very quickly. Then the students get into the hand, what we think of as hands-on. They begin to practice what it is we're teaching them. And they practice and practice and practice with lots of feedback from the instructor before they make the transition or make the next step, which is to authentic work, making a house, wiring a house, cooking a dinner, running a preschool, whatever it is. We're about creating students who can complete a task or do a job. And we do that around our live work program. Every one of our programs, every one of our 10 technical programs has a work component in which we serve a customer. Whether it's building a house, fixing a car, designing a machine, and we do all of that. And we do that from the beginning to the end. It's too much technology for me. All right, so I want to stay in front of you talking about authentic work or live work. A key element of that work is what we think of as the essential or soft skills, teaching our students to deal with customers, to plan an activity, to collaborate and work with other students or with other employees. This is one of our strengths, is, I believe, our homework. The next piece, I talked about preparing our students to go to work. The other thing we do is prepare our students to go to college. Every one of our programs has a college preparatory aspect to it, or quality to it. Nearly all of our programs permit our students to earn college credits, either through articulation agreements with the community college system or several private universities, Johnson & Wales, Culinary Institute of America. We have enhanced articulation agreements with all the community college systems in a couple of our areas, automotive and electricity. We offer dual enrollment opportunities, which permit students to earn credits while they go to school, and when they leave our program, graduate from high school, graduate from our program, they have a transcript in place with credits on that transcript that they can take with them wherever they go. We have students earning from 3 to 9 college credits in almost all of our programs. So we have one program left, and we're still working on that. That's the good news. The challenges, we have an aging infrastructure. Even in the new wing, what we think of as the new wing, where we have our culinary arts program, health occupations program, and so other programs, our equipment is used hard, it is used all the time, and we are struggling with maintaining that equipment and keeping it up to date. Good examples of the challenges that we face: walk-in cooling, we have walk-in refrigerator, walk-in freezer, and a culinary arts program. We are increasingly having to maintain the condenser and the cooling equipment in that area. We have an estimate for replacing the cooling at about $10,000. That's a challenge for us. Another example is our front-end lift in our automotive program, and it was refreshed when the building was, when we expanded the program and built the new wing, we refreshed much of the equipment in the old part of the program. But even that material, that equipment, which is so heavily used, is aging out, and we are struggling with maintaining that equipment, and we're going to plan to replace it. Second issue that we're confronted with that is almost insurmountable for us, and it's not something that you need to do anything about, but it's something I want you to be aware of. Our high schools are shrinking. Since 2006, we have lost approximately 20% of our enrollment. The good news in that picture, though, is that in 2006, when there were 2,100 students in our 470 high schools, we were enrolling about 7% of those students in our technical programs. As our sending schools shrink, we have worked hard to increase our share of their student body. We're now at about 13 to 14% of the available students are attending our programs, so we're increasing our share of our students. As Peter, as Mr. Collins indicated, there is a persistent resistance to change dropout problem. Actually, all four of our high schools struggle with completion rates and dropout, and that has a real impact on us and on our students. You can imagine that a significant percentage of the students that we bring into the Career Technical Center are students who have struggled or aren't entirely comfortable in the academic setting. And those are the students, at least some of those students that we're losing at too fast a rate. One of the good news pieces of that, though, is the collaboration we've established with the adult education program here in RSU1. We have worked to bring those students who leave Morris High School or leave Wisconsin and Academy into our program through our adult ed collaboration. We find that if our dropouts, if we can help them set some goals and also goals for themselves, we do that by getting an old GED program or high school completion program through our adult ed program. We have more luck in keeping them engaged in our program as well. Thank you.
Last thing, you're fine. Listen along. Just a summary, I'm not going to read these bullets, but we're very fortunate to have the staff that we do, from the administrative team sitting behind me to our teaching staff, support staff, cooks, bus drivers, everybody in the district really focuses on, I guess I would say the whole child, it's easy to say that, but the individual needs of students that come to us every day. And I would argue that relationship building is one of the most important things we can do with our students and our staff, trying to do that every single day. Student body, all of our schools, we certainly allow a level of autonomy in our schools, even though we're in RSU. The students that are here tonight, to the students at the high school who have Spirit Week, just a great deal of school pride in all of our schools. Giving back to the community, you heard a lot about that today from people here, and it's not every student that takes the time, takes the effort to give back to the community in some way. Success at high school, Joel just talked about going to work. We have students that go to the military, we have students that go to community colleges, and we also have students that get into very select colleges and very successful. Wonderful opportunities for learning and enrichment. Again, there are plenty of opportunities in this district for that, and we need to motivate, but also students need to engage in those opportunities. And lastly, the community piece. I believe we're very fortunate here to have a lot of different organizations. Could be Midcoast Hospital, Hogan College, Davenport, VIW, many banks, credit unions. Anytime we ask for something, it's always, how can we help you as a district? I'm very fortunate to be in this area and have a very supportive network, as well as community volunteers that come into our schools. So, again, I wanted to end on a positive note. You'll hear throughout this budget process and future board meetings that there are things that we need to address as a staff and don't need additional resources to do that. But also, there are areas in this district where we do believe we do need additional resources to have our students be as successful as we'd like to be. So we'll try to entertain any questions that you might have about any certain level. I'll shut these down to 10.
Sure.
Guys.
Are there any questions from the board for any of the presenters? Okay, it's a lot of information. I think I can't stress enough how important that information was. And I just would like to speak for the whole board that we're really grateful that you folks took the time to put this presentation together. I know there was a lot of work involved with it, but I think it goes a long ways towards really giving the board, and especially two new board members, a quick education on what's going on district-wide in our schools. The board, I think we have an obligation, and I feel like I fell short, I have an obligation, and the board has an obligation next year to fill this room with community, because it's important for the board to hear all of this information, but it's also important for the community to hear this. And as we saw from the presentation, so much of the strength within our schools comes from what we give to the community and what the community gives to us. So I think it's our obligation, particularly with the amount of work that you folks just put in on that we fill these seats next year when we do this all over again, hopefully if you're up for it. So again, just really grateful on behalf of the board and genuinely proud of the work that you guys do. Thank you so much for what you do in our school. Okay, we still have a couple other items to address. We'll move on to committee reports, and we'll begin with item 11.1, Woolwich Building Committee Report. Patrick?
Yeah, just briefly, we did have a meeting with the state not too long ago and got a very positive report about the local funds that are used for the Woolwich project. We're on schedule, so very positive meeting with them. The two issues that somewhat continue or are ongoing, one is the heat. We talked about that. I think we're in a much better situation. We had another flush out of the system just recently. It seems to be solving. I think as of today, there was only one room in that building that was experiencing a little bit hotter temperature than it should have been. We still work with the state and their office to have discussions, and we'll be meeting soon about the additional strainers that may need to be put in. There's some people at the state level that are supporting this project that believe that strainers are necessary, and there's some people that believe that they may not be necessary. So that's, that kind of our last hurdle with that heating system. The wood chip bin, you've heard about that before. We have some redesigns in the work, because right now the truck backs up. We have a lot, it delivers it, and then we have a lot of wood chips that are there that our maintenance people have to shovel and get back into the building because the truck doesn't fit the design, vice versa. So the state does support us the state will pay for redesigns as well as that work to be redone, hopefully this summer, so that we'll fix that problem, because that's a problem that we don't want to have, 10, 20 years continually having to put our people to do that work. So on a positive note, it's a very impressive facility. I know you've all been in there. To walk through there and see the students integrating technology like you heard about tonight, as well as using the common areas and the spaces for educational purposes is impressive.
Any questions for Patrick on the Woolwich Building Committee report? Okay. Did we touch on everything, Tom?
Sounds good.
Okay, good. We're making progress.
Absolutely.
Good, that's important. All right, we'll move on to 11.2, Facilities Committee Report. And Bill, would you be able to give that?
I'll give an update on what's occurred. Certainly, we met recently and welcomed 2 citizen members to the committee. Susan Levine, who's an electrical engineer, and Deborah Keller, who is a director of programming for Alesta Housing, and it oversees the development, financing, and construction of residential units throughout the state of Maine. 2 very competent people that bring skills that we're going to need in the future as we discuss our facilities and our needs.
Okay. Any questions for Bill? Just to sort of give the 2 members, Steve and Kyle, a little update on what Facilities Committee is doing is there's a couple objectives, and I want to also add something to that has been discussed, and I think it's something we need to add to your responsibilities. The goal of the Facilities Committee is to begin looking at all the facilities around the district and evaluating them both in terms of needs regarding infrastructure, structure, windows, heating systems, plumbing, that sort of thing, but also looking at capacities around the district, where do we have space, where don't we have space, that sort of thing. The other thing that I'd really like the Facilities Committee to be focusing on, and we have, by the way, excuse me, we've hired a firm to conduct a report to look at our capacity around the district. Harriman Associates is going to be conducting that study, but that's going to be just within the elementary schools. One of the things that came up tonight in the presentation by the staff and has come up again and again, we've heard it a lot from Dave Richards, it showed up in the NEASC report, is the Morse facility. And I think that this board going into next year with some direction from the Facilities Committee really needs to start looking at what are our options short-term and long-term with that facility. We need to get some sort of study done there as well, and even though we're number 11 on the list for a new school, where could be 10 or 15 years away from a new building, and what is that building going to look like in the next 10 or 15 years? So I think immediately we need to begin looking at what can we do short-term, either at that facility or at another facility, and what are we going to do long-term? Whether it's a renovation, it's an addition, or building a completely new facility on a completely new site. These are conversations that we're going to have within the community. We're going to have to be talking with the staff, alumni, and all of the select board and city councilors from around to get some sort of direction on where to go with Morse. But I just, from what I've been hearing and when I participated in the NEASC, I think we've waited too long. We can't wait any longer. So Morse needs to be a priority on that Facilities Committee. Any questions or comments for Bill on facilities?
What's the timeline for the Harriman audit? When do we expect the report?
Patrick, do you know?
Yeah, I mean, we should get a final, I guess I would say a final report in the next week or two. And really what that is they're looking at the space utilization of the 4 elementary schools. And then they're going to provide us with different options that the Facilities Committee can discuss. And I stress discuss because some of them are going to be fairly radical suggestions, of possibly looking at, not having a facility be open to building, one elementary school that could, house, 3 or 4 of our schools. So there's all kinds of things that are food for discussion that the Facilities Committee would discuss, and then it eventually would come to the board, for a discussion as well as what direction at the elementary level, what level, and then, Tim's right. I mean, Morse is number 11. The state, when we talked to them recently, says, we shouldn't make any radical decisions, but we do have a pulse of the community of what direction do we want to go in, and if we're not going to be, if it's going to be so many years out, as a superintendent, it's my role that, we have to make sure that the building is safe and that it's, conducive to education. So what investment do we put into that building before we build something new? So, I mean, there's a lot of different things, but, 2 weeks we should have the elementary piece of Harriman back. And they're willing to come over and meet with our Facilities Committee to explain the different options.
Any other questions for facilities?
Two other things I'll just say is that the state did encourage us. The Department of Education did encourage myself as well as maybe a board member that they do believe it is advantageous to go up to Augusta at certain times when there are meetings, public hearings up there to do with school construction. I think 10 or 15 years ago, it was fairly common for maybe superintendents or board members to go up and advocate for where they were on the list and the deficiencies. And, the message I heard loud and clear was it would benefit us as a school system to be up there, a couple times to express where we are on the list. And there's other people that are a little bit further behind us on the list that are starting to, talk to their legislators as well, just to see if the state can move people up quicker. And the other thing is I've reached out to NEASC as well to try to set up a face-to-face meeting with them, to also talk with them. Again, they're one entity when it comes to Morse High School, but I think it's good to talk to them about a plan that we're going to start developing.
Okay. We will move on to 11.3, Finance Committee Report. I can give you just a quick summary of what we did at the last report. We had a presentation from our auditor. As usual, we had a very favorable audit, and that credit goes to the folks in central office. The one error or issue that they brought to our attention, which as long as I've been on the board, this continues to be an issue, and I don't see us rectifying it anytime soon, is we don't have enough checks and balances within central office in terms of people, say, receiving checks or depositing checks or verifying things, and that's purely a staffing issue. We just don't have enough people to do all those jobs or to be overseeing other people. But because of tight budget times, I don't see that changing anytime soon. Again, there was high praise to both Deborah and Ruthie from our auditor. He really talks a lot about how well our books and numbers are presented. It's very clear. There's not a lot of errors or issues that he picks up in the auditing. The other thing that we talked about briefly was the budget timeline, and there was a timeline included in your packet, as you can see. And I think there was one other item that we discussed. We talked about, two items. We talked about the cost-sharing situation, which we'll be discussing later on, so I won't address that now. And we also got an update on the main care situation, and the curtailment that we are going to be seeing in this fiscal year. So I don't know if that has been finalized at the time. That was going to be determined within the next couple of weeks. Has that number been? Okay. So we're looking at, because of reduced funding at the state level, we're looking at a curtailment of a little over $165,000 from our state subsidy to our budget for this year. The other thing is our next Finance Committee meeting is Thursday, February 7th at Central Office. So is there anything anybody else wanted to add that I may have missed on finance? Some of you folks were there. Any questions? Okay. All right, we'll move on to Policy Committee report. Who would like to give that report? Dave?
The Policy Committee met on Thursday, the 24th, discussed a number of policies, three of which will appear later for approval as secondary readings. The most time was spent with the animals in school policy, which has been significantly modified. There are two first reading submissions, school and district handbooks, and trips, which has been consolidated from 2 to 1 for a secondary reading this evening.
Okay. Any questions for Dave on Policy Committee? All right. We'll move on to Superintendent's report. Patrick?
Yeah, just an update, the high school principal search. We received over 30 applications, which in my mind is very good. Very high-quality applicants. We'll be interviewing 5 people over the next, during this week. And so, that process will take a little while, but, a committee made up of students, parents, board members, staff, administration, and so we'll be doing those this week, and then we'll be following up with possibly a second round of interviews, doing site visits, and, possibly at the next board meeting, having a candidate for you to consider at the next board meeting, possibly. So we're excited about it, and we'll begin this week. A couple other things. One is, it was mentioned earlier tonight that the autism training, and I just wanted to emphasize when Carrie mentioned that we had to be selected as a district, and we were one of 10 districts to be selected, and all of our schools are represented on this committee. And so, it's a 3-year training process, and I really think it's going to make a big difference in our system here. Kyle, I don't know if you already got a lot of praise, but did you bring up something you want to show there?
Yeah, I
Okay,
did.
go ahead. Yeah.
This is what Mr. Call mentioned earlier. I was able to successfully defend my title in varsity Lincoln Douglas debate for another year. David Rice, Mrs. Rice's son, picked up second place in JVLD. It was only his first year of doing Lincoln Douglas. He had done a public forum last year. Like Mr. Call said, we placed 3rd overall as a team, which is a continued performance equal to what we did last year. So it's great. We're a small train, but we're doing pretty well.
Thank you. And the last thing I'll just say is Rosalie Perkins, who is a pre-K teacher for us, but also helps with some of the administrative piece, is that she presented, I think it was in December, at an Education Maine Symposium, which is some of the lead educators around the state, but also a lot of business people. And, I can't tell you how many emails and phone calls, I wasn't able to go, but a lot of business leaders as well as educators that got in touch with me just to talk about, her presentation, how well it was done, and obviously it's centered around pre-K and getting an early start with students. So just kudos to Rosalie. That's it.
Okay, any questions for Patrick? All right, we'll move on to financial report.
And since Ruthie's here, I thought she could do the honor.
I assume everyone has the report in front of them, and this is for the month ending December 31st. At the top are the expenditures, and as you can see, during December, we're still very much involved with the special ed, main KFC, and lack of extra tuition that we've had to come up with. During the month of January, the Providence check for $190,000 did come into us, so that resolved that tuition issue. So January hopefully will look a lot better. What I did in the encumbered line, as you know, we have a freeze on, and so I encumbered items in order to hold them. So it appears that it's been spent, but it's for me to be able to track so that I don't let just everyone spend everything that they ask for. And I have to say the administrators are wonderful. They've really been great in trying to hold back on expenditures. So as hopefully things loosen up and I have a sense that maybe January is going to look a lot better and on, I will release those funds so that it looks like it will be remaining at the end of the year. Down in the revenue side, you can see the state subsidy shows amount remaining, meaning that we will be $165,000 short because of the curtailment. However, we've had some additional tuition students come in, so that helps that impact. This report shows 79,000 to the good. We did get the tuition rates, and they're not as high as what we had budgeted, so January's report is probably going to show maybe around 63,000 to the good, but it's still to the good. So, and then some miscellaneous revenues. We also found from Providence that we had been paying some tuition on a student that we should not have been paying. So it was nearly a $10,000 check that came back to us. Some of that was paying for last year's tuition that we paid. And so that's what's helping to make up the $17,000 to the good. We had workers' comp dividend come in because our rates are relatively good. That was a $5,000 dividend. So those are some of the things that make up that extra miscellaneous revenues. Any questions?
I have a question, Ruth. Help me understand, okay, under special education tuition and special education instruction, let's take instruction. We've budgeted for $3.1 million. Year-to-date, we've expended 1.2, and there's encumbered another 2.2, which is that essentially a 12% increase over what we budgeted?
That appears that way there. A lot of that 2.2 is salaries that have been income, salaries and benefits to the end of the year.
Yeah.
The $375,000 deficit reflects the main care seed, not the tuition, but just the main care seed. It cannot be called tuition, and so it has to fall in that line, the instruction line. And so that's showing that we did not budget for the main care seed. Mm-hmm. So that's showing, once we get that all paid, that we will be short $375,000 in that line. And then we've had some tuition issues with increased students, and we have 2-3 students that have been receiving additional services that are not main care eligible, so those services fall on us. And then 2 very expensive tuitions that were not budgeted. So that's what brings the tuition line in the negative.
Okay. So, check aside, the $190,000 for Providence.
You'll see that reflected in that $375,000.
Okay, so we will get a credit against that?
Against that, yes,
okay.
in January.
Because I was going to say, those two numbers together are close to, or a little over, $600,000, which is about 2.5% of our total budget. Mm-hmm. So, essentially, the way this looks is the special education line has overspent $600,000, which is 2.5% of our total budget. But that's not the case.
No, once the $190,000 gets credited, that will help. It'll make it look better. It's still going to be overspent. I know things look a little bit better. We've had a couple of students leave. However, I don't know if any will come in to take the place. But it won't be enough to bring it into the black.
Okay.
I don't believe by the end of the year.
It's incredible to me how a handful of students can impact 2.5% of our budget for 2,000 students. Are there any other questions for Ruth on the financials? Okay, thank you. And there's no way we can budget for this?
No, I mean, any district's going to have some unexpected costs around in special education because of students either moving in, students moving out, different placements that are done through the IEP process. So again, it's one of those things where you try to do the best you can, but there's always going to be those things that you can't predict.
Yeah. Okay. Fundraising requests, item 12.3. You have a list in your packet of some requests.
And just a reminder, we're trying to do it differently from now on. We used to bring to you whenever we had like 1 or 2 and be in your packet, and we said we tried to do these twice a year now as an FYI to give you an idea of the different fundraisers that our schools are doing. So,
any questions for Patrick on the fundraising requests? Any comments? Okay. We will move on to old business. Item 13.1, review of board goals. There's one thing I wanted to mention. With regard to the goals. We had on our original list for board focus areas, January, we must be moving everything up a month. So in December, we were going to do a state of the district, but we did it this month. So I'm assuming next month we'll look at health curriculum needs and staffing.
That may be an outdated version. I think I might have updated it, so I can get that out to you. But I know we talked about technology as well, coming to you and doing a report on it, because our one-to-one technology that you heard about tonight is up for renewal, possible renewal consideration. And so I know that Dean and I have talked about him coming in January and doing a report. So I think I can send you guys an updated list of suggested topics for board meetings that resemble the board goals. And I can get that to you guys tomorrow.
Okay. And also, if you could make a note to get the new board members, if you haven't already received it, the mission statement that you had developed, that would help them out. Any questions for Patrick on the goals? Any discussion about any particular goals? Okay. We achieved one of our goals tonight, so that was great. All right. We will move on to item 13.2, second reading of policy IMG, animals in school. This is an action item, and you received a hard copy of this revised policy in front of you. Is there a motion to accept this new policy as written? With
So moved.
changes? Moved by Dave. Seconded by Steve. Any further discussion? Okay, I just wanted to, again, point out that somehow, I don't know what that line was doing in there under A, but I certainly got an awful lot of calls and emails regarding that. I don't think that had anything to do with the policy, but I'm curious what that was in there for. Patrick, do you have any idea?
No, I mean, overall, if you looked at our past policy, it was very simple and really wasn't clear on the expectations if you're going to bring a pet to school. So yeah, I mean, that line was the first one. I mean, just so people are aware, the K-2 staff at Woolwich were very professional and sent an email to myself and I think to board members as well. And also one parent expressed a concern, probably through the teachers. And so we, took it up at the policy committee last Thursday and, talked about their concerns and felt like that one sentence, however way it got in there, was the way to still allow pets, but still have maybe a little bit of a tighter rein on it and letting the principal, putting some stricter guidelines in place, but allowing the principal to have that discretion. And so I think the process that you'd like to see work through a committee worked well. And staff, that's why after we do a first reading, we do our best attempt to get it out to our staff and to anybody else that we see pertinent so that they can weigh in on it.
Okay. I just felt that
Yeah, I'm not sure why.
if that line that says school pets will not be allowed, we didn't need the whole rest of this policy because the policy was nothing's allowed. I think the intent for the board was to establish some clarification about when there are pets in school, this is how we behave, and that line should have never have been in there in the first place. So, any other discussion on that?
On paragraph 3, the word directly related exists, very similar to section A where directly was omitted.
I'm sorry, Kyle.
This is the presence of
I
live
see,
animals in
yeah.
the classroom must be directly related.
Okay.
Paragraph 3, and then in A, it says the same, pretty much the same sentence, but we omitted directly there, but not in
Yeah.
another paragraph. I don't know if that was,
No, we should be consistent, so we can, I mean, I think we should just strike directly both of them to be consistent.
Or are you inferring that maybe we just strike, since it's a duplicative effort?
Right.
Get one sentence
place
out or the
other.
other? Yeah, not have it in both places.
because in that first paragraph, it's kind of duplicated in A, so one of the other places. At least that's what it seems to me.
I would eliminate it from A. Suggest eliminating it from A. Because if we leave it in the third paragraph, then it essentially applies to the whole policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has been eliminated in A anyway, on the,
Okay, so there is a motion on the floor to accept as written. Would somebody like to amend that motion with the new changes? Dave made the motion.
Yes, I didn't quite get the amended wording.
There is basically a duplicated sentence which appears at the beginning of the third paragraph and is also at the beginning of paragraph A. The change would be to just eliminate that sentence from A and leave it in the third paragraph.
So moved.
Okay.
Or as an addendum.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of approving this as amended, please raise your hand. Okay, none opposed? That passes. Okay, we will move on to policy 13.3. This is an action item, second reading of policy IHBAC, child find. Is there a motion to accept as written?
So moved.
Moved by Robin, seconded. A second. By Kyle. Is there any discussion on this? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of policy as written, or the motion, please raise your hand. Any opposed? None. This passes. Okay, we'll move on to item 13.4, second reading of policy ECAE, video surveillance camera. Is there a motion to accept as written?
So moved.
Moved by Dave, seconded by Robin. Is there any further discussion? The only thing that I would suggest is that, and I don't know if we would add it to the policy, but I think there should be a list maintained within the district of where all surveillance equipment is located. And I don't know, again, if we would want to add language to make that part of the policy. But there should be some place within the district, some central place where there's a central list that lists where throughout the districts we have video and surveillance equipment.
If we put that into policy, are we then locked in if needs change and, you know, we want to move it from, say, the lobby at Morse High School to, I don't know, the lobby at BMS, for example? That gives us a leeway, not locking it in with the policy. It's more of a procedure than a, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I would encourage that centrally we have a list.
I would think Dave Richardson must have a record of all of this.
Right.
I mean, it goes with the last sentence of the first paragraph. I mean, we're supposed to, annually review these and where they're placed and are they being effective, and Dave does have a list of what's in the district right now. And we added some recently. I'm not sure he's added, those to his list, in the last month or so, but we certainly do that now and continue to do that.
Okay, great. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Any opposed? None opposed? That passes. Okay, we'll move on to new business. We'll begin with item 14.1, personnel items. Patrick?
Yeah, just a resignation for your information. Just Meredith Blakesley, who was a speech and language person. She began this fall, and unfortunately she had to resign. So we are in the process of filling that. We're very close to filling that position. And then Schedule B appointments, much like fundraisers. At our earlier meeting this year, we said that instead of bringing every Schedule B appointment to you as an FYI, that we bring them to you in a bigger list. And so it's not a huge list, but these are the ones that, to bring to you just for informational purposes.
Any questions for Patrick? All right, we'll move on to item 14.2, pre-K discussion. I just wanted to make sure, again, I know that some of you feel strongly that pre-K is a topic of discussion for this next budget cycle, and I wanted to give you the opportunity to speak. So, Dave, did you want to make some comments?
Yes, briefly, I just would like to reiterate what I actually said at the last board meeting. After November 29th retreat, I made notes and then attempted to sort of summarize in my own thinking what was actually the essence of that meeting. And what came across to me very clearly, I felt personally from the administrative staff, was that we were dealing with worsening socioeconomic and demographic issues in the community, and this was adversely impacting our schools because the tentacles of poverty extended into our classrooms. It was affecting the teaching environment to a significant degree. And I was particularly struck by the words of Judith Harvey, and she stated that, quote, "I have never seen a needier population than in Bath," unquote. I don't need to go over, we were all there, the extensive list of suggestions, remarks, observations made by the administrators. But to me, the overarching fact remained that our students, and particularly our youngest students, need a massive infusion of support in the form of programs, teachers, classroom aides, and the infrastructure to support them. We've heard implications in the reports being made tonight by our administrators that touch on this, perhaps slightly tangentially, but it's clearly there. And we need to make, I've harped on this, the need for pre-K as being a primary and a proven example of a program that has both profound and long-lasting beneficial effects on children's learning. Clearly, we need to make it available to every child in the district, and we need to ensure that they all can attend by providing transportation where it is needed. I've spoken briefly with Sally Brown about the needs at Dyke Newell and came away with a strong feeling that she and her school needed more support. After an informal discussion with Julie Rice and Chet Garrison, of course no longer on a board, but both had excellent suggestions, which I tried to sort of encapsulate in three primary thoughts or recommendations. First of all, a commitment to 100% enrollment in pre-K with transportation assured to those that need it. Secondly, to consider making Dyke Newell a test bed for an expanded approach to elementary education. Support for this concept, I felt, should be sought widely from academic experts such as Professor Castellani, which I think has already addressed the teachers on this issue of poverty. By consultation with educators from other schools, such as Wright School in Portland, who have successfully turned around underperforming schools. Thirdly, proposing a full and frank discussion in our community served by the RSU of the issues of childhood poverty and its profound and lasting impact, not only on the education of children, but on the lives of adolescents as adults as well. Very long-lasting, documented, beneficial effects. This can be accomplished in a number of ways, including a forum at a venue such as the Patent-Free Library with invited and nationally recognized experts. I kind of felt that it doesn't take very much courage to point out that the emperor has no clothes. But when some of our children have no winter coats, it's much easier. Taxpayer support for this is, in my estimation, necessary, as there is undoubtedly a significant cost associated. But we have to get the story out before the community before we can get the kind of support that we need. To this end, I've begun working with Clara Berkowitz of the Maine Children's Alliance, and we've discussed the pre-K issues with Rosalie Perkins, who's the teacher director of pre-K in the RSU, and she has proposed budgets for both 3- and 4-day involvement from with the students. Claire and Ms. Perkins will be seeking support for our pre-K program from the business community as well. She's already done, in my opinion, an outstanding job soliciting foundation support, and that's made a significant difference already. I've kind of just recently sort of volunteered to tour the affiliated pre-K programs at the YMCA Family Focus, Head Start, and Children's Schoolhouse with the superintendent and with Judith Harvey. That leaves the larger issue of community-wide discussion of the influence of poverty on the learning processes of our children and young people unaddressed. I already have certainly the support of some of the members of the board, but I think I can't ride off on my own horse here without feedback, support, ideas. I know Robin's been very helpful in making suggestions and offering her support, but I'd like to see other members of the board offer their thoughts as well.
Thank you, Dave. I feel that this is an important discussion for the board to have, and it's one that will continue throughout the budget process. I felt it important to bring it to the board tonight for two reasons. One, I appreciate the initiative of other board members identifying something within the budget that they feel strongly about, but I also feel that, which Dave kind of brought to my attention, that the way that pre-K is structured in our district, the way it's funded, it's embedded in within the budget. It's not a standalone budget item. So I think it's important that we identify maybe what the cost would be if we went to some sort of universal pre-K, and that would be a great topic for the Finance Committee. But just in general, I wanted to get a sense from the rest of the board where you felt about the concept of universal pre-K district-wide, what your thoughts were, sort of cost aside. And I have to stop before I ask the question. As a rule of practice, there needs to be a motion after 8 o'clock to extend the meeting past 8 o'clock.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
A motion by Bill, seconded by Alan. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of extending the meeting beyond 8 o'clock, please raise your hand. Any opposed? None. All right, so sort of open the floor to other comments about. Bill?
Well, I've already expressed my very strong feeling around the issue of pre-K, did so last year, did so again in the memo to the superintendent not too long ago, that it was without question one of my strong priorities for this upcoming budgetary cycle. You're quite right, we need it costed out so that we can move through the Finance Committee with it and provide the appropriate figures to move forward with an article in the budget. So I'm 100% in favor of it, have been since last year. I'm surprised we didn't have it already.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Anyone